Welcome to Open for Business, the Gallatin Valley's only local business and consumer talk show featuring Tom Egelhoff, the Man Entrepreneur magazine radio called the leading authority in the United States for doing business in small town. Here he is, speaker, author, small business consultant, and Mrs. Egelhoff's favorite son, Tom Egelhoff.
All right, welcome everyone. Open for Business. We air every Saturday live from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Mountain Time on AM 1450 KMMS in Bozeman, 1340 KPRK in Livingston, Montana. If you'd like to be a part of the big broadcast, go to KMMSAM.com and click Listen Live. The call-in number during the show, 406-522-TALK, 406-522-8255. I'm here, you're here. Let's get the show on the road. I want to welcome you to the podcast portion of Open for Business. Each week I share some tips and tricks I've learned along the years about advertising, marketing, promotion, and building strong, successful businesses. And of course, we do these Open for Business podcasts live every Saturday between 11:30 and noon Mountain Time from the studios of AM 1450 KMMS in Bozeman and 1340 KPRK in Livingston, Montana. And of course, the show streams worldwide on the web at KMMSAM.com. If you missed any of the previous podcasts, you'll find them all on my YouTube channel or my website at smalltownmarketing.com. That's smalltownmarketing.com. Go about halfway down the homepage on the left side, and you'll find a link to the podcast page so you can catch up on any of my podcasts that you might have missed. And as I mentioned earlier, today's topic is 10 things every small business owner must know. When I wrote my books and started smalltownmarketing.com website, it was with the idea of helping small business owners in the United States. I had no idea that business owners from over 100 foreign countries were going to show up and use the tips and advice I was offering. But that's what happened. At the present, I sell more books probably in Australia and England than I do in Nebraska or Wyoming. So if you're in Nebraska or Wyoming, buy a book. Point I'm trying to make here is that this podcast isn't really a how-to podcast that fits every business. I don't have all the answers for every type of business on the planet. The purpose of these podcasts and tips is to simply encourage you to think about some things. Have you considered this? Have you considered that? And I think that's the reason the Small Town Marketing website is so popular, both here and overseas, is that it just asks the questions that people need to know. Or need to ask, I guess, or need to know to ask. So perhaps the title of the podcast should be 10 Things Every Small Business Owner Should Think About Instead. Well, let's talk about the power of small business to begin with. According to the Small Business Administration, small businesses are responsible for 58% of the private workforce and 40% of the gross national product, 40% of $18+ trillion. Small businesses also get the credit for more inventions and innovations of products than their big business counterparts. Women-owned businesses generate over $65 billion per year, and 78% of small businesses are comprised of 10 employees or less. And I think in Montana, it's probably 5 or less. So now what's the downside of small business? Well, only 50% of small businesses survive the first year of operation. 80 to 90% fail by the end of the 10th year. Most of these failures could have been prevented if the business owners had been more conscious of the points I want to cover today in this podcast. So if you ignore these 10 things, then your business may wind up in trouble. Once again, I stress that these are not how-tos, but things to think about and adapt to your particular business. So here's the 10 things business owners should really think about. I want to start with the first tip is who are you? Who are you really? There's an old saying, many are called, few are chosen. So nothing could be more truthful in small business. Business owners are cut from a very special cloth. Not everyone has what it takes to start a small business. Question is, do you have what it takes? If you're thinking about starting your own business, here are a few things to think about. You probably have a current job. You're working for somebody else. Someone else makes the decisions for you every day. You might be able to make some minor ones in your position, but someone else makes the major ones, and that's probably why you want to strike out on your own. But this is one of the pitfalls of business startups. All of a sudden, you're in charge. You make all the decisions, big and small. This can be a very scary process when someone else has been doing it most of your life. First, your parents made all the decisions, then teachers, then perhaps the military, bosses, any number of people. Now, all of a sudden, you're the person in charge. Can you handle it? The next area to consider is what you're willing to give up to make your business happen. There are only 24 hours in a day, and so far, you're working 8 of them for someone else. So 1 hour each way to work, and I'll allow you 6 hours of sleep. That leaves you 8 hours a day. 3 hours of family time, and you still have 5 full hours to work on your small business. So how do you spend those 5 hours is one of the keys to success. To begin with, I would suggest that you spend at least 20 minutes of the 5 hours each day reading something about your business or industry. If you do that one simple thing, at the end of a year, you'll know more than 75% of the people in your industry just by reading 20 minutes a day. What are you going to do with the rest of the time? Well, that's simple. You do the other 9 things we're going to talk about. The number 2 of the 10 things business owners need to know, you got to start with your business plan. So according to a study at Harvard University, businesses that spent 6 months or less in planning of their new business had an 80% failure rate. Those that planned for a year or more had an 80% success rate. Most potential business owners know the product or procedures in producing what will be sold, but very little about the day-to-day operation of a small business. So a good business plan will put you on the right track and force you to focus on the points you might otherwise miss. You'll also need a business plan if you're going to request financial aid from banks or investors. They're going to want to know how you plan to make the business a success and pay them back. And even if you've been in business for a few months or a few years, I can't stress strongly enough the importance of revising your business plan on some kind of a regular basis, at least yearly for the first 5 years. And where can you get help developing and writing business plans? Well, your local SCORE volunteers can help. You can contact them through your local Chamber of Commerce. You can also go to the SBA.gov for business plan help. They are prepaid with your tax dollars. Search the SBA Gov site for your nearest Small Business Development Center, or just do a Google search for Small Business Development Center in your state, and it'll pull up the numbers of various locations. In most cities, you'll find them attached to a local university or college. In our case here in Bozeman, they're in the 222 Baltimore building next to First Security Bank on Main Street on the 2nd floor. Number 3, where do you get the funds to run your business? Well, I said earlier that only 50% of businesses survive the first year. The toughest period for most businesses is actually the first 2 years because of the monetary demands on the business. It's that second year that the business usually starts its downhill slide to failure. Now, why is that? Well, inadequate startup financing is the short answer. The money runs out before the business is able to sustain itself on its own. And it's typical for most businesses not to see any real cash flow into the business for at least 3 to 6 months, often longer. And it may be 2 or 3 years before the business actually produces enough for the owner's salary. So before even thinking of starting a business, you need to make a commitment to at least 5 years before quitting. This commitment will keep you focused through the bad times during the early startup months, and trust me, there will be some bad times. You either need a loan or money from your day job to sustain the business for at least the first year, longer if possible, but 12 months is the bare minimum. Now, banks know that you have monthly bills, and that will have to be paid as a part of your loan. Your daily expenses would be included in your business loan. So be realistic in how much money you need, because you got to pay the mortgage, you got to pay the utilities, you've got to pay other insurance, gasoline, all of those things. The bank knows that if you're going to be successful in business, you're going to have to have the money to do those things until the business starts slowly replacing those expenses. So once again, SCORE, or the Small Business Administration, SBA.gov, can help you with preparing the financial statements you'll need before you contact banks or investors. So point number 4, keeping the books. No successful business I know of keeps a bad set of books. Well, no successful one anyway. They know where the money's coming from and where it's going. Good bookkeeping can alert you to a whole host of potential business failures that might go unnoticed in the day-to-day operation of the business. Now, fortunately, in today's world, the computer makes it easier than ever for the average person to maintain the business records necessary for a successful business. Products like QuickBooks or Quicken can produce all the records you need to evaluate and adjust your business for a strong financial position. Now, good accountants are worth their weight in gold. They can help you set up an initial bookkeeping system, and they can show you the red flags to look for each month. I would suggest checking with them before buying an industry-specific software package to see if that system is compatible with what they use. Most of the time it will be, but it never hurts to check before you invest in a specific software package. Number 5, what's the most common cause of small business failure? Well, in most cases, that would be poor management. When you're a one-person operation, you're the only one you have to please. Here's the most common mistake small business owners make when it comes to management. One is they hire the wrong people. Inexperienced owners often hire people they like or have a good feeling about rather than the most qualified applicants for the position. Poor training. Even the most dedicated employee can't perform to their highest level if they're poorly trained. And trying to do too much. As you move from a one-employee shop, you being the only employee, to having more people, you feel the need to do too much. Sooner or later, you've got to delegate some of your responsibility to others. One way to think about this is if you're waiting on customers rather than in the office making calls, building your business, you have probably a $30 an hour person waiting on customers when a $10 an hour or $12 an hour person could be doing that. So sooner or later, delegate some of your responsibilities to others. If you're doing something that a lesser paid person can do, they should be doing it. Poor use of time. Organization's always a sign of a good manager. It's not difficult to juggle several business problems if you have a plan for doing that. And not being there to run the business. As I said, some of you may have outside jobs or may have full-time jobs. Absentee ownership is a tough way to run a business. You can't see the day-to-day problems if you're not there. A good manager for an absentee business owner is essential, but that manager normally doesn't have the authority to make the major decisions. And when the time comes, you may not have all the information you need to make those decisions. So if you feel you're not a good manager, then hiring someone who has the personality to handle those tasks should fill that position. The best player is not always the best candidate to be your leader. If you follow professional basketball, you've probably heard of Phil Jackson. As a coach of the Chicago Bulls, he and Michael Jordan led the Bulls to 6 national championships. As a player, Jackson was a second-string bench warmer. He has no records and 1 NBA championship as a player. He also took the Lakers to their first championship, or their championship the first year he was with the team. So contrast Phil Jackson with Magic Johnson, arguably one of the best college and pro players of all time. Johnson was a horrible coach. He only lasted half a year before knowing that he didn't have whatever it takes to be a good coach, and great player, but he lacked the motivational and people skills to bring out the best in others. Point number 6 is, of course, knowing your customers, or as we like to call it, marketing. Who are the people most likely to want your products or services? Here again, planning is the key. About a third of your business plan will be devoted to marketing. Your marketing plan will be the roadmap to success for your business. You'll create goals, marketing and advertising strategies to meet those goals. And your business plan will assist you in identifying your target market and the message they want to hear that will make them want to buy from you. Point number 7, location. Now, this used to be thought of as one of the most critical criteria for opening a new business. A poor location was often the main reason for failure. And as I stated earlier, running out of money and poor management are 2 of the key causes of business failure, but location is not as critical as once believed. Don't misunderstand, location is important, but it's not the most important thing. What's the most important things to consider when you're selecting a good location? Well, one is visibility, of course. Do you need a visible storefront like a shoe store or dry cleaner? Traffic, is it a high or low traffic area? Is there adequate parking for customers? Is your target market demographic there in that area? What's the condition of the property? Will it need repairs now or in the future? Is the location in a growing or decaying part of town? Can you expand if necessary? And how healthy is the local business climate? Are there other draws nearby that will attract your customers, like movies or food stores? What's the crime level in the area? What about zoning restrictions? And are there comparable businesses nearby? For example, a health food store would benefit from a health club and vice versa. What about rent costs? And last but not least, how close are your competitors? And how do they compare in appearance to your business? And do they look more or less prosperous? So before beginning the search for that perfect location, create an outline of what your current and future needs will be for that property. Associations and industry magazines can help you determine the amount of traffic that you'll need. Number 8, customer service. My idea of customer service probably differs with most you have read until now. I don't believe in customer service above and beyond the call of duty. Why? Because it's impossible to maintain, and it will create an economic hardship. For example, if you buy my books from Amazon.com, they'll ship the book in 3 to 4 business days. Well, why don't they overnight the book to me? Wouldn't that be superior customer service? Certainly better than Barnes & Noble. The reason is overnight costs would be almost as much as the book itself, and it would be economically irresponsible to do that. So, as you can see, knock your socks off service is not always the best way to run a business. What I recommend instead is steady, consistent service. Steady, consistent service. Every time the customer enters your business, they know the level of service that they're going to receive. Could McDonald's service be better? Probably, but whether you walk into one in Portland, Maine or Portland, Oregon, the service is going to be consistent. McDonald's has found a level of service that is acceptable to their customers, and they can provide that service day in and day out consistently and still make a profit. Point 9, don't be afraid to ask for directions. There's an old joke that men refuse to stop and ask for directions when lost. We'd rather drive around aimlessly knowing that we will find the right road eventually. Unfortunately, in business, this can be a disaster, but there is good news. You don't have to spend a fortune on a consultant to give you direction. In most cases, information is free or at least reasonable. Google similar businesses and explore their websites. Look at their website traffic on Alexa.com, 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 and see who links to them. How much traffic do they get? I love letting other people do the testing, after which I reap the benefits of that testing. So if you read about a successful person in your industry, try and contact them and pick their brain. Most people will be happy to help you as long as you're not a direct competitor. Number 10, technology. Are you ready? I spent 8 years selling furniture in a family-owned furniture store in Illinois. I left that company in 1977, and they were still using a manual bookkeeping system. Every sale was manually entered in 2 big ledger books, the way books were kept for hundreds of years, I guess. I had the opportunity to go back for a visit 12 years later and was curious as to what type of computer system they were using. Well, the answer was none. They were still using the old ledger method of keeping the books. And the question I had to ask myself was, couldn't they have benefited by using a computer system and software designed for the furniture industry? My answer had to be yes, they could. And the computer would have told them so much that the normal bookkeeping system couldn't. For example, rate of sale of certain styles and colors, what items sold as groups, hourly sales for staffing, sales comparison among vendors. There are just a few items that would have made the store more efficient with the knowledge the computer would have provided. Does every business need a computer? Of course not. There are many successful businesses that continue to operate with pen and paper. The point is, find out. Contact your industry gurus and find out what the pros and cons of computer systems in your industry are. Maybe they can help, maybe they can't, but at least investigate. So the last word on what every small-town business owner should know. So which of the 10 points I've covered do I think is the most important? Well, that's easy, the first 2. Without those 2, the others will never happen. Number 1, you must have the entrepreneurial spirit. You must be able to take off that employee hat and put on the owner hat. A self-starter who will not be denied and will not accept failure. And second, the business plan. No business can succeed for long without some type of a business plan for their success. So without a business plan, you're simply reacting to economic climate of the marketplace. Sooner or later, your reactions will trip you up. A business plan will take into account and make you focus on how you will tackle the eventual adversity that every business faces. As I said in the beginning, this is not really a how-to podcast, but 10 ideas to give you things you must think about if you expect to have a long and prosperous business. And if you're just starting your business, I wish you all the luck in the world. If you're an old-timer, then you're in a very enviable position, because we are paused for the greatest business times in history. So take advantage of it. And that's the podcast. Each week I share some business tips and tricks I've learned over the years about advertising, marketing, promotion, and building strong, successful businesses. We do them every Saturday between 11:30 and noon here at the studios of AM 1450 KMMS in Bozeman, 1340 KPRK in Livingston, Montana, and streaming worldwide on the web at kmmsam.com. If you missed any of the previous podcasts, you'll find them all on my YouTube channel or my website at smalltownmarketing.com. That's smalltownmarketing.com. And just go about halfway down the page on the left side, and you'll find a link to the podcast page so you can catch up on any of my podcasts you might have missed. So tune in every Saturday, and let's build successful businesses together.